Technology should help businesses move faster, operate smarter, and reduce complexity. At Advance2000, that belief has guided everything we do for more than 30 years. We are a global managed IT, cybersecurity, and private cloud provider dedicated to your productivity. We work hard to keep your teams productive and your data private. We don't just support your tech in the cloud, we support it where it matters most, in your offices. Our end users rate us 4.7 out of 5 stars, with more than 60,000 reviews each year. We power mission-critical applications, servers, and desktops with predictable performance and lower cost. Security isn't an add-on. It's built into everything we design, deploy, and manage. Our approach is simple and proven. We assess, modernize, and support your business. Rely on Advance2000 to modernize your IT and help grow your business today.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining today. I'm Katie Shaner, and on behalf of the Advance2000 team, I'd like to thank you for joining us for our monthly webinar series. Today, we'll be discussing how modern email attacks reach organizations and why they're harder to stop than ever. A few quick housekeeping items before we begin. This session is being recorded and will be sent out post-event. Please submit any questions you have in the Q&A at any time throughout the event. Our team here will be checking and answering as we go, so you'll get to hear from our speakers. I'm passing it over to Joe Fargnoli, who will be introducing our session today and getting our conversation started. Joe?
Hey, thanks, Katie. I want to welcome everybody to this month's Advance2000 webinar. As you recall, in last month's webinar, we covered the 4 major classes of threat actors that most commonly target U.S. businesses. We looked at nation-state and state-sponsored actors, China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. We looked at cyber criminals, things like Scattered Spider, Akira, and ransomware as a service. They're financially motivated. We looked at the hacktivists out there, cyber avengers, Hack, Killnet. These guys are out to protest and express revenge. We also looked at insider threats, those that are malicious and those that are unintentional. Here we are, March 25th. With the initiation of Epic Fury on February 28th, Iran is responding to the kinetic strikes with a multi-layered cyber retaliation strategy. They're doing things like increased spear phishing, destructive attacks, hacktivist campaigns, they're exploiting vulnerabilities, and they're attacking supply chains. While Iran's internet connectivity was severely degraded in the first days of the conflict, Iranian-linked actors have still launched noticeable attacks, and the overall risk to U.S. businesses has increased significantly. Iran is one of the most persistent and aggressive users of email-based attacks, especially spear phishing and credential harvesting. Some of the key characteristics of these email threats: the primary tactic is highly targeted spear phishing combined with sophisticated social engineering. We have groups like Charming Kitten and Mint Sandstorm that are the most active. They impersonate trusted personas. They use techniques like credential phishing, adversary in the middle attacks, and the use of AI-generated content for more convincing lures. From an email security standpoint, they represent a persistent, targeted spear phishing threat that excels at human manipulation rather than zero-day exploits or highly advanced malware. Their success is often higher than technically superior actors because they invest heavily in reconnaissance and social engineering. We're going to talk today about some defensive priorities, things like phishing-resistant MFA, strong email security gateways, user awareness training, and monitoring for anomalous email forwarding rules. So in today's webinar, we're going to pivot from looking at the landscape of risks, which we did last month, to the types of protection that a managed security service provider such as Advance2000 can provide. An MSP, a managed security service provider, protects a U.S. business by providing 24/7 monitoring, threat detection, incident response, and managed security services. Now, since email remains the #1 attack vector, we're going to center our attention today on how Advance2000 MSSP service helps your business identify risks and defend against them. So today we have Brian Moad, who is the CEO of Advance2000. Now, Brian, Advance2000 is a specialized IT and cybersecurity service provider that delivers managed security, cloud solutions, and AI-powered services to businesses. We also have Scott Raba with us. Scott is a field solutions architect with Barracuda. Barracuda is a leading email protection provider and an Advance2000 partner that delivers advanced anti-phishing, anti-ransomware, and email security solutions to MSSP and their clients. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Brian, to begin the conversation.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Welcome, everybody, to the webinar. If you don't know who Advance2000 is, I think Joe did a great job. You can always decide. Go to our website, www.advance2000. Don't use a D. There's an advanced with a D that's impersonating us, that's why we're having these type of webinars. You can go in there and look who we are, and we'd love to get to know you. So today we have Scott, and a little bit about us. We've been Advance2000 has been we're a privately held company. We've been in business for over 30 years. We serve all of North America. Like Joe said, we're an MSP, MSSP, and uniquely a private cloud provider. In addition to that, we develop a lot of our own products, and we do serve businesses across North America. What I'm noticing, a lot of our clients, we're seeing it today, we have 91% of cyber attacks, they start with phishing and email. So it's, our goal here is to educate you, to equip you so you can protect your business and know what's going on. And if you already know what's going on, that's great. Maybe you can share it with us. 94% of malware is delivered via email, which is shocking to me. That email delivers 94% of malware. 70% of phishing attacks use domain spoofing. So we'll talk more about that. And less than 50% of companies have a thing called DMARC adopt. And we'll talk more about DMARC. We're going to be quizzing Scott a lot about these things. So email attacks have also increased 48% year over year. So this isn't going away. This is something that's going to continue to increase, especially with AI. That's even multiplying this whole thing. So again, I want to welcome Scott. Scott, welcome. And I also want to welcome the audience to ask us any questions during that event. So we want to answer some of your questions, and Joe will be reading those questions and asking us those questions. So you can raise your hand and ask questions. So Scott, for those that don't know what phishing is, a lot of people don't. What is phishing? I know I go fishing on a boat, but what is phishing? So what is phishing? Maybe you can explain to the audience what phishing is.
Yeah, and thank you for having me here, Joe and Brian and Katie. Thank you for all the attendees for being here and taking the opportunity out of your day to listen. And great question. And honestly, using a fishing on a boat example is not far off from what phishing emails really are. It's in its simplest form. It's a form of social engineering where the attackers are trying to deceive people into revealing sensitive information. They are trying to lure you in, just like you would with a fishing lure with a worm or a carrot. They're dangling something in you to try to get you to reveal something that you wouldn't normally reveal. And that can take many forms. It can be everything from the classic ones of, hey, I need you to go get gift cards for me for this staff, or I need you to send me the aging accounts receivable reports. It doesn't come in many forms, but the idea is, again, exploiting the human element to do something that they wouldn't normally do.
I see. So it's really not a technical attack. It's a attack. The way I look at it, it's an impersonation of something our business already trusts. And I've seen it happen in our company. I had our CFO send him an email. He's received email, also in our accounting department, email from people impersonating. It's Brian Moad asking for stuff. So I've seen it, and I will share with the audience how some of these emails look like, pretending it's you. So I see somebody go in there. Scott, you're showing a presentation here. Okay.
Yeah, I pulled this up because you were mentioning impersonation, so I was going to pull up an example.
Oh yeah, go ahead. That would be great.
Yeah, and as Brian said, there's different types of impersonation. This is an example of an employee impersonation where it can be posing as an executive or co-workers. This one we commonly see in organizations where it's updating, can you update my direct deposit info? I've actually worked with companies that this has gone through. Direct deposits have been changed, and so it's still legitimate. And again, it's designed to exploit that internal trust. A lot of times it'll put the employee name on a Gmail or Outlook or Yahoo address. So that's the idea, is that this is going to trick somebody into doing something that they wouldn't normally do. And when you look at some of the numbers around this, it's large. 77% of targeted phishing campaigns have some type of employee impersonation. And
I got to admit, not to interrupt you, I admit, we used to own. I used to be a CEO of a logistics company, quite large logistics company, and we fell to a phishing campaign. And our accounts payable person did wire. I think it was the first wire for about $40,000. There was a second wire for $80,000. We caught it before it happened. So the person that wired that money, and she dealt with a lot of transactions, they did impersonate my name, but it was from a different domain. So, but it looked like it was me. So I would encourage our audience to really, it goes back to training your employees to let them look at the domain names. Sorry. So we end up catching that before we sent the second amount of money. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Scott, is there anything else you want to add on phishing? I know I want to ask you another question right now.
No, go ahead. That was
all right.
That was perfect.
So I prepared a bunch of questions for Scott, try to trick him. So the other question here, Scott, what is domain spoofing? I hear a lot about that, and I mentioned that domain spoofing, 70% of phishing attacks, they use domain spoofing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's pretty much as the name implies. And again, I'm going to share my screen just to show an example. It's where a bad actor will forge your domain. They will spoof your domain to leverage, again, that inherent trust that, hey, this is coming from Barracuda or Advance2000 or Microsoft or Intuit. And again, it's if you, on the surface, it looks like it's coming from your company. And a lot of times there'll be urgency built into the email. It's going to be typically from a known contact, quote unquote, within the organization. And, this could be around, again, having invoices being paid, or, just it could be trying to get the bad or the end user to, again, do something they wouldn't normally do. And a lot of times these won't have malicious links. They won't have malicious attachments. It's designed to get you to reveal some information. In this case, it's talking about an overdue balance. But the idea here is that we're going to forge your domain. It's going to look legitimate, like it's coming from you, but it's not. And this, when you start to look at frequency, again, a fairly large number of phishing attacks will involve some form of domain spoofing, very expensive in terms of average cost per incident. And we see DMARC there, and I know Brian's going to talk about DMARC in a little bit, so we'll revisit that. But DMARC is what starts to come into play here in helping to prevent the domain spoofing emails from occurring.
So I did say 50% of companies out there; those are all analyst, statistics. Companies have DMARC deployed. And if you don't know what DMARC is, it stands for domain-based message authentication reporting, and it's a conformance type and conformance. It's a conformist type of thing. Now, a lot of people, and even a lot of IT people that I talk to, don't know what truly is a DMARC, and so I want Scott. So Scott, maybe you can explain what DMARC is for our audience here.
Sure. And DMARC is one of those, as Brian kind of alluded to, kind of those mysterious sender authentication protocols that's out there. A lot of people have heard of SPF. A lot of people have heard of DKIM. And really, DMARC is an evolution of SPF and DKIM. And the idea is that it's an authentication protocol that puts a record into your DNS settings where your domain is registered, that allows policy to be published to dictate how a receiving email server should handle your message. So for instance, if you have a valid DMARC record in place with an enforcement policy that says, hey, I want to quarantine or reject, when an email coming in that's spoofing your domain, when it hits a gateway, that gateway, if it is checking the sender authentication pieces of SPF and DKIM, when it sees something wrong there sees misalignment, which is going to happen when your domain's being spoofed, then a gateway will look to see if you have a DMARC record. And if you do, what does that DMARC record say to do? Does it say just report it? Does it say to quarantine it? Does it say to reject it? So you're putting into place at your organization's level a policy that says if this isn't coming from an approved source, do not allow it to pass through. And I always tell customers, you're never going to stop bad actors from spoofing your domain. There's nothing that's in play right now that stops that. However, valid DMARC records do put something into place to help stop spoofed emails from making it through to recipients, which is very important. The other thing I also like to mention with DMARC, and I think this is just as important, is valid DMARC records ensure that legitimate email traffic is delivered. So it's not just about stopping bad stuff. You want to make sure that good email makes it to its intended recipient. So DMARC has a dual purpose. Stop the domain spoof emails from making it through, ensuring that legitimate emails that you're sending are making it to the intended recipient.
Perfect. I do want to point out, just to add to what Scott, obviously I know what DMARC is, but I do want to, I'm a geeky CEO, but I do want to mention that DMARC is not something that's really important that you basically a switch, you turn it on and then you forget about it. It is something that you got to manage and monitor over time. And if you don't, it becomes stale. It could become something that could be exposed. So if you are an IT director here, make sure you do that. Make sure you manage it. There are companies out there that do DMARC management. We do DMARC management as part of our stuff, but there are companies that's all they do is DMARC management, and they look at this kind of stuff. So I want you to really pay attention to DMARC, because we really don't want to see you whether you use our services or not. Honestly, those webinars we are doing are really designed. If you know more about who we are at Advance2000, I'm a guy that loves technology, and I also am a guy that loves to help people. I love to help organizations. If I feel I helped somebody, whether they do business with us or not, it's like a great pleasure. I really enjoy it. I do what I do every day. So make sure you look at your DMARC. Okay. So having jumped in for DMARC, I'm going to try to trick Scott here again. And we are seeing massive spike in AI-generated phishing. And I want to tell you guys, this is really, really important, okay? And you'll know why, because I know why, but I'm going to share with you why in a minute here. How attackers, so Scott, I'm seeing massive, Scott, of AI-generated phishing. How are attackers using AI today? And what is the traditional email defense mechanism today missing? Because I know what it's missing, but I want you to answer that. And I know I know a lot about Barracuda, so go ahead, please.
Yeah, great question. And I pulled up this slide just because the reality of it is AI is here to stay. It's not going to go away. And as we all are aware, anything that can be used for good, the bad actors will figure out a way to use for bad. And if you look at at these statistics here and really just look at the fact that when you look at the spike in this started back right around the time that GPT was launched. There's no coincidence. And think about it. AI has given anybody the power to do stuff at scale and speed that wasn't available before. And so now think about it. Any one of us can go create an email that looks absolutely legitimate. It looks like it's coming from us. I mean, you can go into any of these AI models and you can preface the response with saying, hey, this is who I am. This is how I talk. Boom. You can set it up to talk and respond like you. So now the bad actors, it's not just that they have an internet access, which is cheap, or a computer, which is cheap. They now have an engine that can craft very good looking emails that long gone are the days of identifying these suspicious emails by grammar or spelling. They're just, that's not there anymore. So now it comes back to, how do your users detect this? Well, that becomes even harder. And so now you have to leverage AI to help detect these types of emails. And it's looking at things beyond grammar and sentence construction. It's looking at heuristics and behavioral analysis, and looking at things like, hey, this email is coming from Joe, but it's signed as Joseph, not Joe. Joe doesn't sign his email as Joseph, so there's something wrong there. So it's again leveraging AI to analyze AI to determine what is behaviorally wrong about this. And it's a game. I always use the age-old cartoon of Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. It is a constant game of catch up. And every time we detect something new, the bad actors come out with something else. In fact, one of the things we've been seeing, and some of you as customers may have seen this, is this uptick in calendar invites coming through and being added automatically to your calendar. And when you go in and click on it, it's actually when it does something to download something malicious or take you somewhere to sign in where it harvests your credentials. So again, there's AI is here to stay, and AI is going to continue to be used not only by bad actors, but by any email security vendor, by any good MSSP, to help stop and protect your organization from these AI generated emails.
Thanks, Scott. I just want to, AI, actually for me, has removed the biggest weakness that these bad actors had before. And I've seen it, examples, they used to send emails that, like Scott mentioned, had bad grammar or misspelling of names and stuff like that. That's gone by the wayside. So good explanation. Thanks, Scott, for doing a great job explaining to our audience. The fourth question, Scott, that I want to ask you is, most attacks today, honestly, for me, they are leveraging technology like AI, but they're not, they exploit trust more than actually vulnerabilities in system. How is Barracuda actually detecting this social engineering that you just mentioned when there's no malware involved? So people think, hey, I got endpoint protection that protects me against viruses, and that's it. So they think of it this way, and all that. And again, they have that mindset because our audience, a lot of our customers, they're not technologists like you and I. They're lawyer, accounting firms, architectural engineering firms, schools and hospitals, and all that kind of stuff. So tell us again, how does Barracuda actually, or may not again, but how does Barracuda actually detect this type of social engineering when there's no malware actually being delivered as a payload with an email?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's typically where traditional defenses fail, is there's nothing inherently malicious in the email itself. And what a lot of people don't realize, is we've actually been leveraging AI in our email security for almost a decade. We actually brought AI and machine learning to market in what our product was called Sentinel at the time. And that was purpose built to use AI and machine learning. So we've had many years to work on the models, work on the classifiers, even before the chat GPTs and the large language models that we see today. So we have a fairly long track record of leveraging AI, and that's only speeding up now with the sometimes daily occurrence of new models coming out. And that's the idea is, if we look at Microsoft 365, for example, Microsoft 365 has a graph API that's really a fingerprint of your users. Where do they sign in? Who do they talk to? What applications do they use? All the way down to the example I used before of linguistic patterns and how people sign their emails. And so we're tapping into that and saying, okay, behaviorally and heuristically, let's look at this against your users in your organization. And when we're seeing something come in that may not have a malware, a link, an attachment that has a fingerprint associated to it, we're looking at those other indicators, those other behavioral indicators to say, hold up, is there something in this email that is not normal for what we typically see with this organization? And of course, that's going to vary from organization to organization. And that's the beauty of AI. The more you feed it, the better it gets. And with having a track record of using this over the past decade, we've got a lot of data to draw from. And it's why we can continually update, retrain, build new classifiers and roll them out. In fact, we just rolled out, went live with an AI classifier that's related to URLs, where we're now looking at URLs from a behavioral standpoint. And we have seen just in the release over the past week an increased detection rate of around 5,000 to 7,000 detections for malicious URLs. So that's what Barracuda is doing and is going to continue to do to leverage AI to detect those types of things that are coming through that traditional defenses just don't typically catch.
All right. Thank
Hey,
you,
Brian,
Scott.
we've got a few.
You're doing such a great job. What's up, Joe?
We've got a few questions that have come in. If I could maybe
Oh,
interject them, or
yeah,
do you want to
yeah.
wait till the end?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay,
No. Let's. I love to hear from our audience.
All right. So Abhishek asks, "Hi, Brian and Scott. With introduction of agent emails, how do you think it would be handled differently than normal email boxes? I have seen companies give access to agents on different tools, which can provide information in the reply. So we're in the era of open claw. What do you guys think? How is the email security issue changing?"
Sure. Scott, you want to go ahead on this, or?
That's a great question, and I think that that probably brings up a whole nother topic around agentic AI and some of the other stuff that's coming down the pipeline. I think ultimately, an inbox is an inbox, so we're going to analyze that inbox accordingly. I would honestly, as far as like agent emails, it's not something I've heard a lot of recently, and it's something that I would want to also ask our product team and see how they are approaching the agent emails. But if it's an inbox that's sending and receiving email, we're going to certainly analyze that the same way we would if it was you or I or somebody else. Now, as far as, of course, that also brings in a discussion of AI sprawl, and are you giving access to AI to stuff that maybe you want to be careful of? But I think from a pure scanning standpoint, we're going to look at it like any other mailbox and analyze that data accordingly.
Yes, that's a good point. And Abhishek, very good question, by the way. And just so you know, if you are working at a company, I would not be loading OpenClaw right away and start doing things. You would be causing yourself a lot of problems. If you're doing things in the lab, I totally encourage you to do that. We're very familiar with that product, but I'm going to jump into the other question here. Scott, you did such a great job answering the earlier questions. I was going to ask, there's a terminology out there called BEC, which is, again, part of this business email compromise, which really a lot of analysts say they cause billions in business losses each year. And why is it so effective? But I think, Scott, you've answered a lot of this earlier, unless you want to go. And when there's no malware, there's no alert, and the request is legitimate or seems very legitimate, it causes, it causes, it causes people to be tricked. So this is where I'm going to let Scott. Scott, you want to show some stuff here? Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And business email compromise is, by definition, is a very targeted fraud. And again, it's still using email, social engineering. Typically, again, no malware, nothing that is in that email that says, hey, there's something wrong with this as far as a link or an attachment. And a lot of times, this is around invoices and payment requests. And one of the tactics I've also seen is where you'll have this email, but then below it, the bad actor will put another email that looks like it's being forwarded from somebody within the company as well. And then this email saying, hey, look, can you process this payment for me? And again, it's usually going to come from somebody that is at the executive level. It's going to play on the trust factor to get this done and get it done fairly quickly. In this case, sense of urgency. And Brian talked about it. This can be very expensive. In 2024 alone, 2.4 or $2.9 billion. That's a lot of money. And if anybody wants to pay a fake invoice, I'll gladly send you one. You can pay me. You don't have to go through all the rigmarole of getting a bad email. But 2.9 billion is a lot of money, and it is the costliest email threat today. So this is a biggie, a big one where, again, playing on that inherent, the human element to do something that they wouldn't normally do based off of who that email is coming from.
Right. I gotta, again, it's identity protection, process control, and visibility into communication patterns is necessary here. So I'm going to jump into question number 6. Tell us on how email security is evolving from spam filtering and identity protection. I think you've already covered this because you went on and on and on that, which is great. I'm not. I can tell Scott is an engineer, by the way, guys. I can tell. So go ahead. If you want to talk briefly on this, I'll talk briefly on this, and we're going to jump to question 7, which is more interesting than this. I want to keep our audience excited about our webinar.
Yeah, this is another area where you hear a lot of terms being thrown around, like integrated cloud email security, API-only approaches, and the truth is that while there are traditional email security tends to fail because it misses out on the social engineering and it's very much rule driven, which can't detect the dynamic threats. The gateway still very much serves a purpose in the overall email security architecture in terms of protecting against the more volumetric types of attacks. But there's a reason why we have an API solution, why we have AI machine learning, and it's designed to catch the more targeted attacks, which when you look at the numbers, targeted attacks make up a very small percentage of the overall email attack surface, but it's also the one that the majority of people fall for. Most people don't fall for the large kind of spray attacks of I'm going to send this to 5,000 people. No, it's that one email that's coming from Brian's asking for that invoice to be paid that I need it done now, and you jump on it because you want to make sure that you're taking care of something that your CEO asked you to do. So it's not a matter of not having a traditional architecture with a gateway. It's having the more advanced features and functionality as well to not only stop the volumetric attacks, but to also detect and remediate the more advanced attacks.
Cool. So Scott, you and I are a bunch of hackers over here, and we're going to try to hack a bunch of companies. What type of email attack would you do? How would you approach it? And I have some ideas. I'm gonna let you.
There's a lot of ways. I tell customers, and just a side note on my background is I actually was formerly trained in sports medicine, got into IT about 12, 13 years ago, and I actually went back to school for cybersecurity. It was very eye-opening because 90% of what bad actors do is reconnaissance. They are going to research, they are going to look at what is publicly available knowledge to determine where do I want to go, who do I want to go after. I always tell people, don't give away free information. For instance, these trends on Facebook, Instagram, what was your pictures of your first car or name of your first pet? Those are security questions that you would typically have. Don't give away free information. But I'm going to go and look. I'm going to research the potential target's website. I'm going to look at LinkedIn. I'm going to find out, hey, did they just hire somebody in the HR department? I'm going to go after them and pretend to be the CEO because they're going to want to impress the CEO early on in their job. So I'm going to do my reconnaissance work to find that weak link. Remember, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if I can find that one spot that I can apply the pressure to, that's what I'm going to go after.
And I want to agree, Scott, you did, again, a fantastic job. I want to agree with you. You know, a lot of these guys that are hacking you, they're not just sending one thing and they're getting in and all that. They've done, they have a team typically. And if you missed our earlier webinar, you know, those hackers are not some guy sitting in a basement and trying to go in there. A lot of them are state sponsored, and they'll have a team, an army of people that are actually collecting information to disrupt, I call it the supply chain. And think of it like the FBI. And by the way, the FBI just posted that Russian and Iranian are actually targeting U.S. businesses. I'll show it to you. It's on Facebook. They posted the other day. So they'll collect information, and now with AI, they're even able to collect a lot more. And they'll have basically, if you've seen movies, they'll say, well, you know, we're gonna go in there, and like they were targeting the 5 mafias in New York City. They had who the head of the mafia, and they had a bunch of blocks, and this guy's the number 2 man thing. Like that, and it's not on a board with stickers. It's completely digital with a team of experts. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So what Scott said is actually a great answer. Thank you, Scott. So how should organizations, and Scott always does a great job by jumping ahead, so he's killing my questions here. So how should organizations measure their email security today, and what should businesses be looking at?
That's a great question, and I think it has multiple layers. One thing I will say, first and foremost, always have a contingency. Look, the reality of it is I don't care what you're using, it's never going to stop 100% of the email threats that are coming after you. Always have a backup, have a disaster recovery plan, have things in place that you can recover if something does happen. I think that's paramount across the board. The other thing, as far as how you measure your email security success failures, look at, am I spending more time remediating threats that get through than I am focusing on other things that I have to do from a day-to-day basis? Am I having to, am I training? Do I have an established training program where I'm helping to educate my users on what's the latest and greatest that's out there from an email threat standpoint? Am I leveraging not only a gateway solution, but some other inbox level defense that's using AI and machine learning? In cybersecurity, it's all about a layered defense, and you can apply that principle to just email security. There has to be a layered defense. If you're relying on a single layer, odds are there's a lot of stuff that's going to get through and be a potential click for an end user. So it's having those layers in place, and having that disaster recovery plan. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, and absolutely right. So if I was just to focus on email today, and I'm going to jump into the layer of defense that Scott talked about. Again, if you're an IT audience or a business owner online, make sure your IT department and you're enforcing DMARC, number 1, and actually monitoring things, okay? And check how many authorized senders are using your domain. You're allowing authorized senders. How quickly can you detect and respond to a compromise in an account? And I'm going to jump into what Scott said over here in a minute here. The layer of defense, you have complete visibility. So with us at Advance2000, to give you an example of what we've done with clients, I mentioned earlier, and I don't know if I mentioned, but we have a risk scorecard that grades the client. Now, Barracuda is one component of our risk scorecard. It's literally a small component. It's not like it's a critical component. There's another component to measure a company's risk. And we've designed that very specifically for the business owner. So me, I'm the CEO of Advance. I also happen to be a geek, but there's a lot of CEOs out there, my colleagues, I ran this logistics company, I have other stuff. They're not technical people. So I wanted to design something. So if I'm a C-level person, I have in one snapshot a complete picture of my defense, a grade. Think of it a grade, like going to the doctor and doing your blood work, and he's giving you, hey, you got to lay off this or you got to lay off that. So that's really important. So talking about the layers of defense, there are, if you're not familiar, there are things called zero-day vulnerabilities, where things that attacks, exploits that perhaps, again, I go back to foreign governments or hostile governments, and talking about supply chain, will hold to release it because they want to hold on to it to an opportune time to cause disruption in supply and supply chain. So is something going to happen or could happen? It's a possibility. Now, of course, you want to take every possible measure to protect yourself, but you have to have, I tell you right now, one of the biggest things in our security is backups. And it's not backing up. Am I doing backup today? Am I doing backup? Are my backups are immutable? Are my backups also offline? So we do a backup to a backup to a backup. A lot of customers tell me they didn't notice, and we actually don't tell them we're doing these things, but I do them anyway because I want to sleep at night because they're entrusting me with that kind of stuff. So we do this kind of layered, this kind of approach with our managed service solution that we provide. So I'm going to ask Scott. Scott, thank you for the layer defense. If a company gets email security right, and I hope they do, because again, as we talked about earlier, a lot of these malwares, a lot of these things all come through email. Unfortunately, email's been around I remember Bill Gates said, well, email will be replaced, and it has never been replaced. I remember him saying this, and it's still there, and it's going to continue to be there, until someday. So if the company gets email security right, what changes, Scott, from an operations standpoint? I know what changes, but I'm going to let you.
Yes. Yeah, that's always an interesting question, because it's, how do you measure? Do you measure it on ROI, employee comfortability and happiness? Excuse me. I think there's a lot of different measures. From an operations standpoint, when email security is in place, it's fine-tuned, it's running, what you should see is, one, obviously a decrease in suspicious emails making it to end users that you have to deal with. I think that puts employees' minds at ease. It lets them know that you're taking the company's overall security, the company's lifeline is email, just the value of the company and the taking it all serious, that you want to make sure that the company continues to thrive. And email is one of those vectors that you're protecting against. I think you will see, from an IT perspective, I think you see your IT staff is less stressed because there's pieces in place that, again, that are stopping some of this stuff from getting through, or the majority of it from getting through. And they are able to then focus on some of the other big projects or important things that they need to address. And when you start to put all of those things together, that's where you start to see ROI. You can't necessarily say, hey, if I spend X dollars on email security, I get X dollars back. But what you see is a trickle down of, if I'm spending X dollars on email security and it's running well, then all of these other pieces start to fall into place where my IT staff is less stressed and they can focus on the major projects. My employees they're happier, they're more comfortable, they're able to focus on their daily work because they're not having to deal with suspicious emails coming through. So morale goes up. So it's in general, it trickles down and kind of permeates the organization as a whole. And then that's what you in leadership see is that benefit of investing here trickling down and then bubbling back up to the surface in productivity.
Hey Scott, I know that you probably have a chart there on the fact that the complexity of email attacks is increasing, and you have some information on the frequency of this. To Brian's point, to understand the ROI of email protection, we have to look at what is the susceptibility or the likelihood of this occurring. Could you maybe share that and talk us through it?
Yes, and I hadn't pulled this up yet. Just so you know, these are 13 email threat types that Barracuda has identified. We could probably update this with a couple of other ones, but this goes back to what I was mentioning, where from a email attack standpoint, the vast majority is still very much the volumetric attacks. That's why they're called volumetric. Whereas the more complex social engineering styles of attacks only comprise a small percentage of the email attacks. But it's what most organizations are falling victim to. And so that's why it's so important to have, again, the layered approach. You want to make sure that the junk doesn't make it through, but the very targeted ones, you need to have a way to stop those, because those are the ones that people click on. Those are the ones that they pay invoices and send out money or change direct deposits. And when you look at the fact that 75% of organizations have fallen victim to a successful email attack, it is vitally important that you have not only email security and a layered approach there, but some process in place to educate and train your users, because the landscape changes so fast. But when I first saw this chart, especially with these numbers, I was kind of blew me away when I started looking at the volume and then what organizations fell for. I kind of knew that in my head, but having some numbers to put to it was very eye-opening. And again, this percentage accounts for probably billions and billions of dollars a year.
Right. But yeah, no, that, you know what? That's why if again, you're here, make sure you train your employees. We have cybersecurity training. Do that as a recurring event in your company to train your people. We're gonna send an email, leave links of typical emails. Take those documents and share them with your users. Hey, maybe look at the who it's coming from. It doesn't say Brian Moed. Look to make sure it's actually coming from a legitimate domain and all that kind of stuff. Those are all, and which leads me to the next question. I want to jump in. Before I jump in the next question, I'm going to go back to number 9. And I asked Scott, if a company gets email security right, what changes? Just think, most companies, to manage their own IT effectively, I could tell you every assessment we've ever done. And I don't say, again, I wish I'd love you to be our client and give us business, but I'm this because I would love you to be our client, but I'm not saying this to tell you this. Every single assessment, a cybersecurity risk assessment we've done, we found a boatload of vulnerabilities. And a lot of these attacks that happen, whether state-sponsored, they're typically focused on larger organizations, but that's changing because they do realize and I didn't know this, 99% of U.S. businesses are made up of small and medium-sized businesses. 99%. Actually, 99.8 and 99.8%, almost 100%, made out of, which is half of the country's GDP. So think about it. So a lot of these state actors, they say, well, those top guys are 0.02%. They're very well protected. Let's figure out how to go under and actually perhaps scale up to those top guys, because a lot of the smaller guys are actually subcontractors to the bigger guys. keep that in the back of your mind. So I'm going to jump in here to question number 10. And so we do these assessments before I jump in, and we find a lot of things. Sometimes we find that the backups aren't really being done, or the backups aren't immutable, or the backups aren't going offline, or there's all types of things aren't patched, and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you do these things, okay? So let me jump to question number 10. We're seeing a shift towards, I call it, it's a technology, and Scott perhaps talk about it, like Barracuda's approach. I can't be always just Barracuda's friend, so I'm going to attack Scott a little bit, all right? So Barracuda's approach, which was a great approach, was based on a gateway, which somebody that's almost, think of it like a security guard that sits there and looks at everything that comes in and goes out, that kind of stuff. There is a new technology, which, by the way, Scott's company, they already have tools there, which is called AI first, API first, and AI native, which is trying to help close call it the gap, right? As I told you earlier, you're going to be training your employees to close the gap. Even if you say, well, Brian, we train our employees every single month, and somebody's still screwed up, and we end up getting wiring money or so on. So there's these type of technologies, API first, AI native. We've seen a big shift in this type of security architecture. I'm going to say, Scott, what is it? Maybe you can talk more about what it is. And how is Barracuda, what's Barracuda doing about it to address it? I know you guys are traditional gateway type of company and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian's right. I mean, when Barracuda was started, it was started with a physical email security gateway appliance that we've had all the way up until about a year and a half ago when we end of sailed it. I was still supporting the ones in the field. And the truth really is no matter what you're using from an email security perspective, even if you're not using anything or you're just using Microsoft or Google, you're still using a gateway. So the gateway still has a place, but what you're seeing, and really the term that we're seeing in the out there in the field is ICES, Integrated Cloud Email Security. And like anything that can kind of get mislabeled or mishandled what it is, really what it's pointing to is that API native approach where you're tying directly into your tenant, whether it's Microsoft or Google, and you're living and breathing at the inbox level, and you're moving beyond the rule-based, policy-defined email signatures, that type of detection to the more heuristics and behavioral analysis. You're looking at things beyond just known bad indicators. And that's where the marketplace is going. It's what we built out, a decade ago with impersonation protection. It's what companies like Abnormal are using. It's I think Proofpoint has some AI capabilities as well. Checkpoint, their solution has some gateway and AI capabilities. But that's what it is. It's moving beyond the traditional policy-driven, rule-based approach to, hey, how can we leverage the tools in hand, specifically AI machine learning, to identify suspicious behaviors or patterns that a gateway doesn't inherently have a definition for. And a great example is, look, I can go out and create a free Gmail address right now and start spamming away. And until it's been reported enough times, a gateway is not going to stop it. So we need something else that can look at that and say, well, hold up. There's something unusual about this email that doesn't match up. Let's take action on it. And that's where we're going. So if you see the ICES, API, AI, that's what we're looking towards, that tenant, tie into the tenant inbox level defense.
Hey, Brian, before you jump in, we've got about 5 more minutes, folks, before we wrap up. I just want to encourage, we have about 5 more minutes before we wrap up. I want to encourage anybody to submit any last minute questions that we could field.
Joe, is there any questions right now? Or
we've answered all of them. We're inviting more, but they're all answered so far. So
okay, good. So I want to point out I've been in the IT for, I'm an electrical engineer. I've been in the IT for almost 40 years, today's my birthday, so it'll be 62. Interesting, doing my webinar on my birthday here. So I want to point out, just so you guys know, regarding AI and API native, do not fall into the hype, okay? AI is a big hype, I think. This is my opinion. You can tell me, Brian, you don't know what you're doing. I use AI, I leverage. It's a hype. It's not like it's a bad technology or anything. I think it's here to stay, and all that kind of stuff. But do not think it's the only solution for everything. So that's really what I'm trying to get to. And if you look at it as the only solution for everything, you're making a big mistake. So having the gateway is necessary. I think it's a layered defense, like Scott mentioned, and that's my opinion on it. My personal opinion. You can tell me, Brian, you don't know what you're doing. I'll challenge you, but that's my opinion. So let me go a little bit. First, I introduced a little bit of Advance2000. I knew Scott from Barracuda Network. Scott, tell us a little bit who Barracuda Networks is. Now, I go back, I know who you guys are. A little bit about the background of Barracuda and all that kind of stuff. I think it's important people to know who your company is.
Yeah, appreciate that. And as I mentioned, Barracuda was initially founded in 2003 as an email security company with an email security appliance. We have since grown into a full cybersecurity platform. We have products that work in the email security space, data protection, network security, application security, and even a full XDR platform that kind of wraps over everything. So we've evolved into a full portfolio company. One of the things that we are continuing to do is evolve not only that portfolio and platform, but also to converge it into more of a singularity where it's a very cohesive, everything works together very tightly. We're owned by a private equity firm, KKR, which I think is the second largest private equity firm out there in the world. So we do have the funding to continue to grow and advance, and we're worldwide. I mean, we have offices all across the globe. We have a Americas team and EMEA, Europe, Middle Eastern, Asia, and then we have an APAC, Asia Pacific team. So we are across the world, and we work with partners like Advance2000 to sell our services and our products. We love working with partners, and that's the thing. We're channel driven, so we love working with partners like Advance because we're not replacing what they do. We're coming alongside them and enhancing what they do and giving them tools and features and functionality to help them help you as a customer. And that's the whole goal, is how do we help you, whether it's from a consultative perspective, a product perspective, how do we help you secure your business so that you can focus on running your business, not running your security? And that's the goal, is to, as we like to say, it's easy to buy, deploy, and use, and we're here to secure your business, by whatever means that is.
All right. With that, I think we should probably start wrapping up right now. Brian, I want to thank you very much. Scott, thank
Joe,
you as well.
Hold on. We're not done, Scott. Joe, I got one more questions. I got one more question for Scott. I don't, unless the audience are going to leave here, but what makes Barracuda different from its competitors, Scott?
A couple of things. One, the fact that we are a portfolio company, so we have products that span the whole range. And I know this may sound kind of dumb to say, but I will also mention our support. We have a dedicated support team that's 24/7 live in-person supports. So we have not only the sales team and the people in place to help you with getting the right products and features and functionality in your hand, we have a world-class support team on the back end to help you in the case that there's any issues or you need help with something. You make a phone call, somebody's answering that phone for you.
So I want to tell you a little bit why we continue to partner with Barracuda, and it's not because we want to sell you. We make very little money on Barracuda. They've been a good partner, and as we mentioned earlier, when you're delivering a solution for for customers. Even so, we develop a lot of our own stuff. Even today, our webinar that I'm talking to you about, we're using our own hypervisor that we have developed as a company. We're not using Citrix or VMware or anything. We've developed our own hypervisor. So one thing, when you're trying to build and provide a great solution for clients, sometimes it's not done alone. You have to partner with good partners. And so Barracuda has been a good partner. We try to hold them to the fire. Like today, I was going to drill Scott more on API native and AI, API first and AI native. But they've been a good partner and they're doing a good job, and you can rely on them to be more sustainable. So build a solution in your company. You really want to look at sustainability. If you're partnering with a partner that constantly changes things, or a partner that's constantly doesn't have a sustainable ongoing business, prices change. I've seen it over and over again where basically a company's partnered with somebody and the partner went and raised the price. Example, VMware. They went ahead and raised the price by 9x. So think of it, if you are a company working with a partner, and if Barracuda does this, Scott, we will not be partners anymore. So if somebody does this as a company, and you are running your business, you have these fixed costs, and all of a sudden you got to pay 10x price on some software, that's for me unacceptable, at least as a CEO or a business person. So Scott, thank you for being our partner, and we appreciate all your time. Our audience, Joe, now we can close, but our audience, thank you again for being there. And if you have any questions, you can always email us. We'll put some stuff in the chat, email to everybody regarding some of the slides and things. We're here to help. Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Joe, now we can close. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. All right, thank you.
Katie, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. And a big thank you to Brian and Scott for leading the discussion and for Joe for keeping us on track. So thank you, everybody, for joining, and reach out with any questions. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.